everyone, it's Elamona. Some of you guys may have known me from my MBTI blog on Tumblr. I just want to make this series called Reality Checks so that I can possibly impart my own experience to you guys and you can have a more realistic expectations of what it would really be like when you're living out there on your own. The first thing I really want to talk about is grades. How important are grades really? Is it the end of the world to get a B+ like a lot of people think, especially if you're a good student and you work hard? Is it as devastating as you think to have a C in your report card? Does that mean that you can never get a good job ever, or you can never go to a grad school? Let me tell you this, it's wrong. Everything about grades that you have been taught in school is wrong. I can understand why grades can seem really important, especially when you're still in schools, whether it's high school or university or college, because that's how your whole world seems to be judging you, assessing your worth. Your parents only ask you about your grades. They might seem to only care that you're doing well in school. Like my parents, who are the typical Asian parents who expect the 4.0s and want their kids to be in medical school and grow up to be a doctor. Your friends, that's how you kind of compete, and that seems to be one of the main topic of conversations. Or your teachers, they pretty much only seem to care about how you're doing in their classes. But let me tell you this, the reality is that this world that you're in is almost like a snow globe. Your whole world is revolved around school and grades and doing well and competing to get better grades. It's just a really small part of life. When you graduate and when you're working in the real world and when you're out of this snow globe, it doesn't matter anymore. When you're in high school, you may think that your high school grades is everything to you and that's all that matters. To an extent, it does matter if you want to go into university and you should pass a certain standards to be able to get in, but it is not everything. High school grades are not everything. And you realize this very quickly when you start university. If you ever bring up your high school grades to anyone and say like, oh, do you know that in high school I used to get straight A's? Nobody gives a shit. And it's almost like a joke because now university is a whole other level and the criteria are completely different. It's just ridiculous if you think your high school grades still represent you in any way. It might not seem that different because now what people care about is what you're getting in your university courses. So you still see the same pattern here. But let me tell you this, ever since I graduated, no one has asked for my grades ever since. Ever. Not even in interviews. I went to a lot of interviews and I would give them my resume, which I didn't put my grades in. I just put my degree and what I studied. They have never once asked me what I got. At that time was quite a surprise for me because it was so important. I thought it was so important and I was trying very hard to do very well so that I can get good jobs. But guess what? They seem to not care. My friends in engineering can back me up, and as well as business management. I'm pretty sure certain jobs would look at your grades. For example, if you want to be a research assistant and work toward becoming a researcher or a professor, but that's a minority of jobs available. Seriously, companies only care that you're competent enough to do the job and that you fit into their company culture. And if you want to get into graduate schools, it's also quite important that you have good enough grades. However, I've heard many stories of people getting to law school and medical schools with B's and C's in their report cards. So you do not need straight A's, and it's possible. One of the time when grades are truly important is if you really want to get a scholarship, which always help, especially if you live in the part of the world where tuition is not free. What I really want to say is that even though you should aim for getting good grades in school. Grades are not everything. I don't advocate on aiming to always get straight A's, because for most schools and how most classes are structured, grades are basically the measurement of how good at memorizing you are. While memorization skills can be an advantage, especially if you want to study something like law or medicine when there's a lot of terminologies that you just have to know, it's not a true measure of how much you're learning and how much you're doing your own critical thinking, which I believe is much more important. It's not a true measure of intelligence or divergent thinking or your creativity or even how successful you be in life. Have you ever actually heard a story of someone being successful because they had straight A's? I don't think so. What makes you unique and make you stand out in the world is this whole package that you are. Your grades and how studious and hardworking you are is one part of that. But there are also other skills that are equally important. And you can't just have one thing. Do you also have artistic skills or musical skills, or are you also good at playing sports? Or maybe you're really good at socializing, making new friends, making a big network that can help you advance in life. Have you also developed yourself to become a good personality that people would admire? It's all of these things combined that would make you successful in life. For me, right now, I am 25 and it's so far away that it's almost ridiculous that I cared so much back then that I could truly be devastated with a B, when now I realize that it's something so small. There's one thing that my dad used to tell me that really stuck with me. He had really good grades in school, pretty much straight A's throughout school and universities. And he said that people like him who their sole existence when they're in school was trying to get good grades. You were trained to follow rules so much that your way of thinking kind of molds into the way that society wants, per se. He said that people like him who get really high grades are usually recruited by famous firms early, and then you keep climbing up the ladder in the firms and you're pretty much stuck there working for someone else for life. And he said that a lot of his friends who had worse grades than he did had to struggle on their own, but they also had time to learn other skills, that they're now business owners and are now traveling the world, which are some things that he told me he really regrets. So even though grades are important, it's also important to develop other parts of yourself. Okay, one last thing. If you're trying to get good grades because you're motivated by competing with other people, I mean, that's fine to an extent. But if you get to the point that you feel truly devastated if you're not the first of your class, you're just putting too much of your self-worth to your grades. You are not just your grades. Do not let your grades define who you are, because you're so much more than that. Just concentrate on learning and getting more knowledge, rather than having a beautiful straight A's in your report cards, because that is not why we're truly in school for. I really hope this can help you guys. I am trying to be as straightforward as I can here, and I'll try to do more reality checks in the future. Feel free to suggest any topics on YouTube or on my blog on Tumblr. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye!